Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Low Season Traveller Insider Guides. I'm Jed Brown, your host for this week's episode, and today we're heading over to Borneo to join Nikki as she travels the world during the low season months. Now, orangutans are one of the three species of great ape, and, along with gorillas and chimpanzees, are closest cousins. Their plight is such that the Orangutan Foundation International estimates that at current rates, they will be extinct in just 50 years' time. Pressures from illegal logging and the palm oil industry being their greatest threats. Despite that, one place where you are almost guaranteed to see them in the wild is Indonesian Borneo, also known as Kalimantan. As ever, tourism provides a vital role in saving these remarkable creatures by both protecting their environment and providing alternative sources of income for the local people. Former BBC journalist Nikki Morrison has been travelling the world during the low seasons for us, and a highlight of her trip so far has been a 4-day river cruise with the eco-tourism organisation called Local Guides. And it does exactly what it says on the tin, cutting out the middleman and putting you, the traveller, in direct contact with a community of local experts who promote responsible travel in off-the-beaten-path destinations throughout Indonesia. Guides like Teguh Prakoso, who Nikki spoke to as their journey drew to a close on what also transpired to be his 27th birthday. Enjoy.
Welcome to the podcast. I think first of all it'd be helpful if you tell us where we are at the moment.
Now we are in Tanjung Puting National Park, located in Pangkalan Bun, central of Borneo, Indonesia.
And what's the name of the river that we're cruising on?
In the past, people just call it Crocodile River because there are crocodiles in the area. But there was a Dutch colonial ship sank here named Seconir, and since that time, people call it Seconir because of the dialect of the local people, Seconir River.
People are going to hear the sound of boats going back and forth, the sound of the crew doing their thing, so it might be a little bit noisy. Tell us a little bit, first of all, about how you came to be a guide, because you actually started off going to Palm Oil University.
Yeah, I was not expecting that I could be a guide now in this national park, because when I was in high school, I was wondering what I could do after I graduate, and I wanted to be a teacher, but it's much better working in the palm oil industry to make a living, so I thought that was the only industry I could work in. And I was looking for a university I could go to, and I found a palm oil university. Yeah, we have a palm oil university here in Indonesia. It is Institute of Agriculture, Yogyakarta, located in Yogyakarta.
So you didn't think you had any options but to work in palm oil?
There was no other option. In the past, there was another industry. It was a logging industry, and few of them are legal, and many of them were illegal logging activity here. But it was in 1990s and early 2000s, so in my age, there was no other option but working in the palm oil industry.
So how did you make the move from palm oil to tourism then? How did that happen for you?
I've seen how it works there, and the thing that I've seen there changing my mind to not working there instead.
So what have you seen that made you change your mind?
There were quite many things. You might have heard about how the palm oil became the biggest threat for the orangutan. In the past, the biggest threat for the orangutan was only illegal logging. It was actually just a little threat for them because they didn't do anything to the orangutan. They only even took like few trees. They choose what trees they could sell, and the other trees are still around. But in the palm oil industry, they do a land clearing, which means there is no other tree but palm oil. So it becomes the biggest threat for the orangutan because according to Orangutan Foundation, orangutan will go back to the place where they were born. So it's been quite many conflicts between orangutan and palm oil industry. In the past, in the palm oil industry, orangutan was just pests.
Yeah.
But now it's prohibited for them, so they also have to have a sustainable industry.
So things are changing a little bit, but culturally, why was it important to you to do something about the orangutans?
Here, there is also Aboriginal people from Borneo called Dayak, and it's been also quite many conflicts between Dayak and also the palm oil industry. It's because for the Dayak people who have an animism belief named Kaharingan, forest is a sacred place. Forest is the place where their ancestors go to, so they have to keep the forest. You might heard that the Dayak people also do farming, but they only do it in a small scale. They still keep the forest for the animal as well as for their belief in the animism belief of the Dayak people.
And are they attached to the orangutans? Are orangutans important to Dayak people? Or is it more the forest that's important?
Forest and the animal in the forest. Because in the animism belief of the Dayak people, there are also some sacred animal like a bird, a hornbill for the symbol of the Dayak people. Yeah.
So trying to save that, and your family as well have been involved in the fight against palm oil and to try and save the forests.
Yes, my family in the Dayak village, and I also did internship program when I was in the palm oil university. And what shocked me was the first time I went to the industry of the palm oil. The first day I saw a conflict there because there was a forest who they believe that it belonged to their ancestor, but the palm oil land clear and also plant the palm oil there, and it's been very difficult for the Dayak people to fight for the land because they didn't have any like paper.
Yeah.
And the company they have the paper, so they could just easily clean the land and get protection from the government too.
What bird's that, do you know? And so you were also telling me about your grandmother's cousin as well, who was involved very much in the literally in the fight against palm oil.
And yeah, it's very it's lucky that we can still see the national park forest, because it's been very difficult for the people here who are aware of the environment to protect it. It's been a protection area since 1937 by the Dutch colonial as a protection area for proboscis monkey and orangutan, but there were quite many illegal activities in the national park area, and in the past also people live in the national park area. People did illegal logging. We lost so many trees there, like the ironwood, which is the strongest wood from Borneo, strongest but slowly growing.
Yeah.
It takes 100 years. We have a big tree in east of Borneo which is already 1,000 years. And if you go around the national park, you might see some cut trees of the ironwood. And we also have Ramin, Pengkirai, Meranti, and many people cut the tree in the national park in the past. And there were already also few NGOs trying to protect the environment here, but it's been difficult also because the illegal loggers were also very powerful, and some journalists were also attacked in the past. But luckily, since many journalists reported to the Department of Forestry of Indonesia, the rule becomes more strict, and since 2003 there is no more illegal activities in the national park. And one of the things that changed is the tourism. And
how important is tourism?
Tourism is pretty important for the environment, especially, as well as for the local people, because we could have a occupation. And also the people who live in the national park in the past, they now work as a ranger, so they don't do illegal logging anymore. They work as a ranger, they work as a captain, guide here in this national park. And
so you said that our captain here today, he used to work in illegal logging.
He did.
Yeah.
He
but
did.
It's about having an alternative, isn't it? It's about having options.
Yeah. And I and my friends who are guide here would like to say that tourism is also like control here. Control.
What do you mean by that?
Because we could see during the pandemic, many people expected it would be very nice for the nature, rest time for the orangutan, rest time for the environment in the national park. But it wasn't completely true, because there was no tourists, nobody comes, so there was like more possibility for people to get into the forest and hunting animal because some of my friends here saw people hunt for bird in the national park area. And
so the illegal activity
might happen.
Came back up again.
Possible.
Because
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible to happen. So, but since the end of May, we already had some tourists to see, and now we already have tourists. So.
But you said it's quiet, and that a lot of people have had to give up on tourism, sell their boats.
You're right. Yeah, we used to have 100 boats, and now we have only a half of it. It's been a difficult time for the tourism here because the national park was closed for 2.5 years. So many of my friends, they sold it, and you might, if you go to Kuma, you might see a few of them were sank because no maintenance from the owner.
Yeah. So in terms of this being a low season, because people normally come when it's a little bit less rainy, but in actual fact it's a really low season because so many people have had to leave the tourism industry because of the pandemic. So this is one of the few places in the world that I think you could actually argue that you should have over tourism, because it's the only way to put pressure on the authorities really to keep investing in the national parks and keep investing in the orangutan programs. Is that right?
Yeah.
What's your hope for the future?
My hope, there will be more people coming, in particular in the national park as well as in Borneo, because not only this national park, we also have some other places where people can go to, but many people like this national park because you might see also wild orangutan and ex-captive orangutan in the feeding station, and people call this national park the capital of orangutan. But I hope that there will be more people, so then you can also visit another place, for example Dayak village, and in the Dayak village they also have a protection forest there if you want to do like more jungle trek. And also we have some few beautiful places for diving in east of Borneo. But it might be a little bit difficult nowadays because there is no direct flight. So some of my tourists who come here, they wanted to go to east of Borneo, but they have to take a flight to Jakarta to East Borneo.
Yes, you can't go direct within Kalimantan.
So maybe
really
in the
difficult.
future there will be transportation. It easier to go there.
And do you think tourists understand how important they are to the fight for people in Borneo?
Many of them maybe don't realize that they actually don't only go here for vacation, but you come here also as a protection for the environment and for the rainforest especially.
That's amazing. That's really good. Thank you very much, Gur. It's been an amazing trip, and you've been a great guide.
Thank you.
So there you have it. And you can learn more about local guides by visiting www.local-guides.org, and you can also find out what they're up to over on Instagram at Local Guides Adventures. Nikki told me that the high season is June, July, August and September, so the low season is effectively the rest of the year from October through to May. At peak times before the pandemic, there could be as many as 100 people at a feeding station to see the orangutans. The number of clock-tock, or boats, working the river has halved since the pandemic, from 100 to just 50. So again, there's urgent need to support Borneo tourism regardless of the season. But that's our show for this week. Thanks, as always, for your company. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please do leave us a positive rating and review on your podcast app. And also don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn to be the first to hear our latest low season stories, articles and guides. But that's our show. Have a great week wherever you are, and remember that travel is always better and fairer for the planet, the local communities and you the travellers when it's without the crowds.